Hey everybody, I'm going to do an around the world update, but we're going to get started by feeding the goldfish and the koi a little bit. Get them out and swimming around, otherwise they'll just sit there right in that front corner all huddled up waiting for me to feed them. So this way we'll get to see them out and about swimming around a little bit. If you notice the two jawbones lying there on the edge, those are a matching pair of jawbones I found while out on my kayak the other day. They were sitting in the water side by side. I couldn't find any other bones to go with it, but that is a right and left jawbone, and so I'm assuming that's the matching pair. And I don't know where they're going to end up. Probably out in the garden somewhere in the yard, but for now they are sitting in here, not actually doing anything. They're just sitting there. So not a lot to talk about with the goldfish pond here. My koi had been looking a little on the thin side. I think I needed to step up how much I've been feeding them. They weren't getting skinny necessarily. They didn't have that sunken belly, but they were looking a little on the thin side. They weren't nice and rounded out and filled out like I wanted them to be. And so I have been feeding them a little more, and they are starting to fill in. So mission accomplished there. Not a lot else going on here. I got in there recently and got all the muck out of the pump that causes my waterfall to flow here. And so that's up and flowing nice and well. All my plants up here are doing really well. Everything looks good. So not a lot to talk about, but we are going to go ahead and turn this light off so we don't get a lot of glare on the rest of the tanks once we start going around the room. So from there we will just go ahead and start with my 40 breeder here. This has the two Discus in it. I was given 3 Discus by one of my viewers. This is 2 of them. And then they paired off and got aggressive towards the third one that was in the tank. And so I moved the third one out of there. We will see that very shortly. So the only other fish in this tank are these minnows. I tried to collect all the minnows out and get them into my 125, but there were a few that never got pulled out of here, and this is them. So they're not aggressive in the sense that they're violent towards the Discus, but they are very boisterous. They're very energetic, and they dart and dash around. You can see this is without even putting any food in the tank. You should see at feeding time. And as such, the Discus, who are typically much more sedate of a fish, tend to kind of cower down at this end of the tank. And I don't think they're overly stressed, but they're also not really out and about, chilling out and enjoying the tank the way I would expect them to be. So at some point, something's got to give. I got to either move those Discus or I got to move these minnows. I'm not sure which is going to go because I don't really have a place to put either one of them at the moment. And I do believe these are satin fin shiners, except for these couple little fish you see swimming around in there. Those little ones are gambusia, which are mosquito fish. They're closely related to the guppies. So that's all we've got going on in the 40 breeder. We'll move on over to the 29 miscellaneous. Now, this tank is one of my few tanks that is lighted with the stock lighting that came with the tank, and as a result it's one of the few tanks I have where I very seldom have to get in and do any maintenance to the plants. They grow very slowly in this tank. This Anubias here I have to cut back about once a year. This Anubias down here in the corner I have never cut back. That's the original Anubias. It's been in there for probably close to a decade, and it is only that big. Java fern that's in there gets cut back again about once a year, and that's about it. And I rarely even have to get in there and wipe down the glass. You can see right now it's got some of that green spot algae on the glass, and so I will need to get in there at some point with a razor blade and get that all scraped off whenever I get in here and do a water change. This is one of those tanks that gets about 2 water changes a year if it's lucky, and it just ticks over like a clock. So we leave that one alone mostly, and it keeps ticking over like a clock. So moving on, this is the only tank I really have anything worth discussing. I have sad news, and that is when I came down here and got the lights turned on this morning, I found one of my loaches dried up on the floor in front of the tank. And I've never lost a loach to having it jump out of the tank. It was one of my yo-yo loaches, And I don't know which one it was yet. I think it was the huge fat female, because I do not see her in the tank anymore. And so, unfortunately, I think my big fat female loach is now gone. But we'll wait and see. I haven't seen all of the loaches out and about yet. I haven't had a chance to spend much time in here inspecting the tank. So this, of course, is that other discus I was talking about. This one got moved into this tank where it is doing very well. You can see how brightly colored it is. And it's much larger than those other two as well, so it's doing really good in this tank. This angelfish here was also given to me by the same viewer at the same time. All of them were about the size of a nickel when I got them, and now they're growing in very nicely. This angelfish has a lot more going on with it than at first appearance. It is a lace zebra, and it's got all kind of little subtle blues and charcoal-y smoky colors in it. It's a really, really pretty angelfish once you see it up close and in person underneath the lights. And lastly, to update on this tank, I do have one of my pearl gouramis is not looking good. And I do believe it is just aging out. It's the one in the right-hand corner up in the top, this one here. Its fins are looking a little ragged. It's looking very thin. And it just doesn't look good all the way around. So it looks to me as though it's just aging out. It just looks like an old fish. And I've had them for at least 5 or 6 years now. And that's about what their lifespan is. So to have one of them beginning to look like it's aging out is not that unexpected. And we'll see how long it takes for the rest of them to age out. I've had this happen before. Bought a group of fish all the same time, the same age, and 1 or 2 of them would die of what appeared to be old age, and then the other 3 or 4 of those same group would live on for 2 or 3 or 4 more years. So just because we're losing one of those pearl gouramis does not mean that they're all going to start aging out here. But, you know, they don't live forever, and they are all, 5 or 6 years old now, so they are going to start fading away here pretty soon, and then we'll see whatever happens with this tank once we move on to something different. All right, moving on to the next tank. This is my 55-gallon tank. Used to be my angelfish tank once upon a time. The filter on this tank has not been changed in 14 or 15 months now, but I have been keeping up on the water changes and that sort of thing. I got in there recently and did a big water change. I cleaned out a lot of the Java moss that was growing in here. It was growing all over the spray bar and everything else. It was also growing all over my power head back there. So I got a new air stone. I cleaned off the power head, and now you can actually see how much water movement we've got going on in this tank. There's quite a bit of water flow in here. So most of the fish that are in here are these tetras. It's Buenos Aires tetras are the ones with the red in the tail, and then the shiny, vibrant ones are diamond tetras, and they certainly live up to their name. I do have one right here that looks like he's got a bad eye, or possibly he's developing one of those tumors that the tetras will develop. That's what it looks like to me, is one of those tetra tumors. It's about the 3rd one I've had in this tank over the years. And so I'm not too concerned about it. I'm not sure if it's something that's contagious or not, but as infrequently as it turns up in this tank, and this is the only tank I've ever had any issues with it. So again, I'm just not going to worry too much about it or separate that fish, and there's nothing I can do to treat for it either. So we're just going to let that fish live out its life, and we'll see how long that takes. So I have not replaced any of the fish in this tank in years. They just keep breeding and replacing themselves. I started with 5 or 6 diamond tetras. I now have like 9 or 10 of them in there. And so after, 6 or 7 years of them being in there, I now have way more than when I started. And the original fish are probably all gone by now. They've all faded away from old age and, just aged out. but they keep getting replaced by new babies. And the same with these Buenos Aires tetras. They're now starting to replace themselves as they age out over time. So I haven't had to buy any fish for this tank in a long time. And I don't know if you've caught any glimpses of it, but I do have a red-tailed shark in this tank, and it hides in the back there behind that big rock. And every now and again it'll pop its head up and make an appearance. And occasionally it comes out and chases some of the tetras around, but mostly it just stays hidden. I've also got some catfish at the bottom of this tank. I got a Synodontus lucipinus and a clown pleco, and we seldom see either one of them because they have lots and lots of places to hide, and therefore they do. So that's about all that we've got going on in this tank. We'll move on to my 40 breeder. This one got some much needed water change and a little bit of gravel vacuum. We got some scum and muck and stuff out of the bottom. Wasn't really hurting anything necessarily, but it was unsightly. And this tank doesn't have any kind of filtration on it or anything. It's just got a small power head in the back. I've got the air stone, and then I do have a very small power head down in the back in the bottom there, blowing the water forward. If you look very closely, you'll see the movement on that Anubias. That does have a power head back there blowing water towards that Anubias. And so we do get a little bit of circulation in the tank, but we don't get any actual physical filtration. I don't have an actual filter on it. That filter is disconnected. It's just been sitting there, and the spray bar and all the hardware and everything on the back is just sitting there. That's not actually connected to anything at the moment. So it may look like it is filtered, but this is an unfiltered tank at the moment. So not much going on in here. Again, we still do need to get in there and maybe thin out some of the vegetation a little bit. I've got some issues with some excess hair algae, but I have incorporated a bunch of shrimp into this tank, and I don't know how well they're surviving. There are a lot of predatory fish in this tank, but if the shrimp are surviving, then they should take care of the hair algae for me. And I'm also going to look forward to getting some Nearite snails or something like that will get added to this tank to help me deal with the hair algae that's growing in here. So that's about all we've got going on in the 40 breeder. We'll move along to my 125. Not much going on in here either. The chief thing to talk about here is the size of my silver dollars here. This is my biggest silver dollar, you can see right there up front. And when I look at that fish straight on, like down into the top of the tank, it is about that thick in the middle. It is a really, really chunky silver dollar. I had no idea they actually got that big. I do have two different types of silver dollars. I have the spotted silver dollars, which are the smaller ones with the spots on them, and then I have just the standard paint job, which is the larger all silver ones. I've got a red-tailed shark in here. I'm sorry, I've got a rainbow shark in here. That is not a red-tailed shark, that is a rainbow shark. You can tell by all of the fins are red, not just the tail. And the red-tailed sharks have more a slightly blacker body, and the rainbow sharks here have more of a sort of grayish green body. I prefer the rainbows over the red-tail sharks. Getting my colors confused here. But I do have both of them. I do have a red tail and a rainbow. The other thing to talk about in the tank is my pearl cichlid here. This was also given to me as a gift by a viewer. It is really starting to put on weight and come into its own. It's almost as big as my spotted tilapia Flo back there. I saw them side by side the other day, and the pearl cichlid is almost as big as Flo now, believe it or not. It's about 2/3 the size. Now, Flo obviously has a lot more mass. She's a lot thicker. But she is also probably pushing 8 years old now, something like that. Maybe even older. I lose track of time. So she is a spotted tilapia. There's the angelfish. Got some of those minnows swimming around in here. And then I think this one here, this pearl cichlid, this is a type of geophagus. It's a, I don't know what the actual name of it, but it is a geo, and it goes by the common name of pearl cichlid. And you can also see that jewel cichlid right there swimming into the back, that reddish fish. That is a really large jewel cichlid as well. And then last but not least, we'll have a look at my Anubias. I get compliments on this Anubias all the time. It is massive. You can see the leaves are larger than my hand. We've got some nice flower action happening here. And of course, as I always like to point out to everybody, looking at these leaves from behind while they're backlit are just amazing. Absolutely beautiful leaves on this plant. And so that is my large Anubias. And this has been growing in this tank for years and years as well. It takes a little while for an Anubias to get to that kind of size, but it will eventually if you're patient. Alright, we are going to move along to the shrimp tank here. Still got the cloudy water in there. We've got the magnolia leaf. It looks like we've got a little bit of water still flowing through there, so I need to get in there and clear this up. Maybe pull some of the Java moss off of the filter. So now that I've pulled that off, I gotta find a place for that. Oh, there's a trash can on the floor right behind me, so found a place for that. Alright, moving on to my fancy goldfish tank. Nothing at all really to talk about in here. We do need to get these fish into a larger tank, but I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't have the money for it. Don't really have the space for it. I guess I can remove this tank and this tank, and I can put a larger tank on this dresser here. But for now, they're doing okay. They're not cramped, but these fish will get larger, especially Bruce Brown, my calico fantail there. They can get up to 10 inches. Wednesday, which is my peacock oranda, won't get too much bigger, I don't think. And then my other oranda here, I don't think is going to get too much bigger than that. So she's still got a little ways to go. The fantail, however, the least fancy fish in the tank, is probably going to get the biggest. Believe it or not, that is the youngest fish in the tank, is this fantail right there. So that is all that's really going on with the goldfish. We will move along to the 125 discus tank. And not much going on in here. We'll check to see if we've got any flowers or flower spikes on my red tiger lotus. It does not look like it. So the bright orange fish is a Millennium rainbow fish. The two yellowy ones are the females. The bright orange one is the male. They're obviously albino, but they are Millennium rainbow fish, and they are huge as well. But again, when you have the fish for as long as I do, they tend to get pretty big. These rainbow fish are at least 7 or 8 years old now. I'm surprised they're still alive. They've already gone beyond their expiration date as far as how long you should really expect a rainbow fish to live. And then, of course, we got my discus, and there's a lot of live bears in there. I'm down to one Siamese algae eater. The other Siamese algae eater did pass away recently. Probably once again, just of old age. So we got the one Siamese algae eater. I've got some catfish on the bottom. There are a few other fish that you can't readily see when you look into this tank. But that's what we've got going on here in the discus tank. My little 20-gallon tank that's got my half-moon Betta fish in it. That is Gilgalad, one of the few fish that actually has a name. And he has got so much personality for such a little fish. I absolutely love my little betta fish. I never thought I'd be a betta fish guy, but after getting one, I fell in love with him. I got another one that's up in my office tank. Unfortunately, that one has already passed away. It's come and gone. And my very first betta fish right there is still alive. That's one of my few shrimp that actually is bright red. I was given some shrimp by a channel member, and they've bred like crazy. I got them in the tank we just looked at. I've got them growing like crazy in here. And if you'll see this sort of orangish cream color, that's the color of the shrimp that I got. And some of them are coming out clear, sort of grayish clear colors. Some of them are coming out orange, but occasionally you'll see I get these really bright red ones popping out. So someday I'd like to isolate the red ones and get a few of the red ones in a tank together and see if I can't start breeding them and get a bunch of red ones going on. That would be fun. Maybe I can just catch another red one and throw it in this tank and just see if I can get them breeding naturally. But the only fish I have in here are the two little guppies. There's a bunch of shrimp and then my little betta fish here. So probably going to be getting some guppies to go in this tank, or some other small live bear that's not really boisterous. I don't want to stress out my little betta fish there too much, but that does feel like an awful lot of empty tank that could have some fish swimming around in it if I just gave them the opportunity. So there you go, everybody. That's a trip all the way around the world. We're back to where we started. We'll get the pond light turned back on, and in just about an hour I'll be down here getting everybody fed for real. But you can already see what I was talking about in the beginning of the video with just the little bit of feeding we did, and those goldfish swimming around as much as they have. They've already muddied up the water to that extent. So I do need to get in there and either do a really big water change and vac a bunch of stuff out of the bottom, or I need to just set up my filter and just let the filter run for an afternoon or so and just filter the water. I think of it almost like as a dialysis. I just put a filter on it. It's temporary. I let it run for 6 hours. I keep changing the filter pads out, and when the water's running fairly clear, I can go ahead and disconnect the filter and let the tank go back to sitting the way it is. Because again, this tank also is filterless. All it has is some water flow from my waterfall pump that's coming in here, and then I do have another internal pump that's actually moving water clockwise around the inside of the tank there, but there's no actual filtration on it in any way. So that's why that water starts to get dirty like that. So there you go, everybody. There's a look all the way around the world. Don't forget, while I do not shoot many standalone videos like this anymore, I do hang out here in the fish room every Friday night and Sunday night from 8 p.m. till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, just depends on the evening. And we hang out, we talk about this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't always revolve around fish, so if you want to just come hang out with me and the crew on a Friday night or a Sunday night, check it out, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday night and Sunday night, and we go live for a few hours. So come hang out, enjoy the crew, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you soon.